So lovely to have you as listeners and watchers with us, and a big warm welcome to you, Nicola Taylor. So lovely to have you with us today.
Kia ora, Leanne, and kia ora koutou, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure and privilege. So, for you out there, listeners, the reason that Nicola and I are here having this conversation today is that I attended the Best Places to Work Awards in New Zealand, 3 or 4 weeks ago now, Nicola?
I think so, yeah.
And there was the winner of the overall winner of Best Places to Work and the winner of the
Up,
small
up to 50
up
people.
to
Yeah.
50 workplace was Tax Traders and Taxi. And Nicola is a co-founder of those companies, and so therefore was the recipient of the overall winner of Best Places to Work in New Zealand 2024. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just amazing. It was an amazing night, and it was so wonderful to be there with so many of our team and celebrate together. It was certainly one I'll remember for a long time.
You all look like you were having such a great time.
We
Wonderful,
we
wonderful,
always have a good
wonderful.
time, but it was pretty special. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And so the reason I reached out to Nicola was not actually because her company was the winner, but actually because of her acceptance speech. And in her acceptance speech, she talked about things that are so close to my heart and so right in the center of human work that I'm like, oh, you and I, like soul sisters, we have to have a conversation. So we've had a conversation, and now we're just privileged to have Nicola join us for this conversation today. So thank you again, Nicola.
I honestly, I feel the privilege is all mine when you find someone that is using words like love and work together and is really seeking human flourishing from the workplace and from there out. I was just so delighted to make a connection with you, and so happy to have this chat.
Amazing. Thanks, Nicola. There's many other things about Nicola, including also this week she won another leadership award, but we won't go into that
No, no, no,
today.
no,
That maybe that's a
no.
conversation for another day. Let's kick into it, Nicola. So, um, firstly, why is it that you care about making your workplace more human?
I think I care about that because I have a belief about the value of humans. I believe that humans are extraordinary creations or creatures that are complex, that are beautiful, that are creative, that, yeah, sometimes they're hurt and hurting, but that humans are, glorious and that we should, and that every human has value and dignity by virtue of being human. So if you have that belief about people, and then you're in a workplace, then you are going to have different workplace kind of practices or mindsets, if you like, because you value people so deeply. So I have a deep belief about people and humans, but I also have a deep belief about the workplace and the enormous impact that the workplace has on people's lives. Like we have people for 40 hours a week. And we know, and the research is so clear about this, what a huge impact that workplace is going to have on their life, on their mental health, on their levels of anxiety, on the way they go home to their families and participate in community. So our workplace is human because I guess I believe this thing about humans being valuable and precious and having dignity, and that workplace is going to be hugely impactful on their lives and therefore on the world around them. So that's probably, where
Mm.
that comes from. People often ask me, "Oh, you must have experienced a terrible workplace or something like that." And I actually have never experienced a terrible workplace. I've had great workplaces, but I think, I mean, potentially, looking at my past, it's potentially been like a desire to see human flourishing, to change social outcomes, right? And I worked in a very, worked in a law firm. I did not-for-profit work, worked with charities. I also worked closely with government, and it was probably that desire to see human flourishing and change social outcomes that has been consistent. And now, I'm in a business, and that hasn't changed, human flourishing, desire to see good social outcomes. And that's why we're a human workplace.
So, Nicola, what strikes me as you say that is that you talk about the relationship between the workplace and social outcomes. And I barely
Exactly.
ever hear anyone talk about that. And it feels really close to my heart. How is it that I can imagine there'd be plenty of business people listening to this saying, yeah, but the first and foremost, I need to make sure that my business is successful. How can I also care about the condition in which people go home at the end of the day? Because just because that might help with social outcomes. Like I'm just busy just trying to take care of, my
Well,
business.
well, there's a lot to say about that. And one day, I hope that a business that is only concerned with the bottom line won't actually be a business.
Mm,
They'll be something else, but we will not give them the label of business because they're actually not. That's my hope one day that actually we will change the way people think about business. But for where we are now, I mean, I don't like talking about the impact on the bottom line because that is not what motivates me, right?
mm,
But this is not an either or. If I care about people, then that's somehow taking away from my ability to make money. It's actually the opposite. If you care about your people well, if you prioritize their well-being, then you will have better business outcomes. And I just think we need to the research on this is unbelievably strong. We are losing, it is in the trillions of dollars globally because of unhappy employees. And we know that when people feel engaged in their workplace, they're more likely to stay. They're more likely to be engaged, i.e., offering great ideas, innovating. They're more, and their productivity increases. We know this now. So I guess I don't have too much time anymore. I mean, maybe I need to be a little bit more patient, Leanne, but I think we've really got to change this either or paradigm. Or if I am kind to my people and create a great workplace, then my bottom line won't do so well. No, it is actually the same thing. If
mm,
you're investing in your people, you are investing in the success of your business. And it's worth saying in terms of like the social outcomes, right?
mm.
I mean, this we know that the impact of a manager on a human is on a human's mental health is far greater than the impact of their therapist and their doctor, right? We know that and it's about the same as their partner,
Mm.
right? Their life partner has about the same impact on their mental health as their manager does. We know that three-fifths of the world population say that their manager is the biggest factor that impacts their mental health, right? So these are very kind of easy lines to draw now.
Yeah, love it. Thank you so much, Nicola. Um, well, I hope that you're right, and that in the future we just have organisations who actually really
Yeah, for
deeply
people.
care for the
That's right.
humans and the planet.
Yes.
Um, Beautiful. And so, one of the things that I try to do in these conversations is
Yes.
help other aspiring leaders who care about this stuff to know where to start. So, I just wonder if you might share
Mm.
with us, well, what are some ways? It's all very well to talk about this idea, but how does it play out in the workplace? And what
Sure.
are some of the things you do that other people could play
Okay.
with?
Yeah, so maybe we'll talk about mindset first, and then I'll talk
Mm,
about how that outworks. So
sure.
the mindset I have actually, if we talk about your book, it's like
Mm,
every person deserves love and support and to grow and flourish. And so one of the mindsets that I take in, if you like, is when we have a new cohort start, yeah, my mindset and therefore our people and culture team's mindset is who are you? Who are you? And how do we set the conditions for you to flourish and therefore do the most amazing work of your life? Right? So I don't know if that helps, but they're the questions I come back to. And there's a deep curiosity and there's a deep empathy in that. Who are you? And like how are you wired? How have you been created? And therefore, how do we set the conditions for human flourishing? And, I think sometimes, I will get back to some practical examples, but I think sometimes at workplaces, we care more about the conditions of the pot plants flourishing than we do about the actual humans, right?
Mm.
We're like, is the light right? Does it have enough moisture? Does it have too much moisture? Oh, this plant will only grow here, or we'll put this plant here. And it's like, man, if we were just like that with our humans, does this human have enough light or whatever? Do they have enough moisture? Oh, this human needs extra sunshine compared to this human. We can make that happen because we're clever people. So that's kind of like a mindset that I guess I carry into that one of curiosity and empathy and a deep desire for that person to be known and seen and therefore to work really brilliantly. So that's the overall mindset. I think one of the things that
Beautiful. Nicola, I'm just going to
yeah,
jump in here because,
yeah,
I asked about the practical, but what I love is that you've pulled us back into this conversation around mindset because,
yes,
that's what we found when we were researching for the book, Human Work,
right.
is that, there is no checklist. There is no just do this or just
Um,
do that. It's like, it's the way we think about these things, which is, it
yeah,
comes back to our mindsets.
that's
And of
right.
course, we found some mindsets that seem to be common across leaders like you who care about creating human workplaces, just like
Mm,
you've said. But I just love the idea that we bring people back to, yes, you might be looking for what's some practical things that I can do, but
mm,
actually in the holding of the question that you
mm.
just said, Nicola, of who are you,
Yeah,
that generates a way of being that
that's right.
enables you to know what the next thing is to do, right? Like
Mm, mm,
you
mm,
can't go to your playbook and necessarily pull out the next 10 actions. It's like
mm.
by being
Yeah,
in that curiosity,
yes, yeah,
you're in a place to know what the next right action
that's
is.
right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right. And the fact is, I do believe, and I have looked at all the data on this, I do actually believe that people who are seen will do better work, right? So I actually believe that. Like it's one and the same. So as a business leader, this is just making sense. And yeah, so that's probably like a mindset. And that kind of carries through to difficult conversations and to, performance issues, all of these things, like a mindset of curiosity, empathy, and assuming positive intent is really, really helpful in like difficult conversations, performance conversations, things like that. Okay. But one of the things I think that we did a long time ago, and this kind of is in that checklist category, although people should, do with what they want, is we actually became like a Gallup strengths-based organization. Now, I'm not associated with them in any way. It just so happened that I'd done that at another workplace. But I think it doesn't really matter what you use in some way, although I do really like Gallup Strengths because it's basically saying, it's asking the same question, who are you? Let's make that stronger. Oh, you've got these weaknesses? Kind of let's, you know, they're never really going to be strengths. So why don't we just build on how you are actually made and where your strengths are? So it is strengths based, right? But what that did for us, and this is why a number of these personality, I guess, tools could work. It gave us a language of empathy, of difference, of same. So instead of me saying, man, it just irritates me so much when you just like run off and do that thing without thinking about it, I could say, that's your activator strength. I see it, I understand it, and I know how to talk about it and I know how to work with that strength, right? Or it's really frustrating that you, Nicola, want to kind of talk through like an interaction like after it's happened, you want to relate it out, which I do. It's like, oh, actually, you're a relator. And incidentally, Leanne, my husband Josh is not a relator, right? So if we're driving home from a dinner party, I just want to relate that thing out. I want to go top to toe. I want to talk through every human interaction, everything. He's basically onto the next thing. Right, cool. Well, let's do this when we get home. Anyway, I know he's not a relator and I am a relator. It's a strength of mine, right? It's great. But I know who the relators are at work. So I'll just connect with one of them because they've got that skill and they've got the ability instead of being frustrated at Josh for not having that strength, right? So that just gave us a language and it just gave us a language and a way to narrate difference and narrate same. And it gave us an ability to see people a bit better. So instead of seeing the frustration, you can actually see their strength. And I think that was just really helpful kind of entry level. But it's worth saying that we didn't just like do a survey and that was it. It kind of permeates every part of our culture. It's one of the things that permeates every part of our culture. So that's been really, really helpful. The fact that we're very clear and we write down what our purpose is, what we call our DNA. So we have 5 elements of our DNA, practice generosity, show integrity, cultivate joy, innovate courageously. And the last one is see the person, see the person.
Amazing.
Yeah, for clients and stakeholders and each other. So the fact that we are very clear about what kind of workplace we are, that we commit that in writing, that everybody kind of collaborates and agrees to that, is I think really helpful. And I am a big fan of writing things down that you believe in and making them kind of live and breathe for people.
Amazing.
So that's been, I think, really helpful. We actually write down some of our ways of working as well.
Mm. And Nicola,
And
how do you
yeah,
keep those alive? Because I,
yeah,
like
that's a
worked
good
with a number of
question.
organizations
Yeah.
who've kind of pull out their values from the bottom drawer. Like,
No. Yeah.
how do you,
Yeah.
what do you practically do?
Yeah. It's so good because you would hear someone talk about our DNA every day in the office. Every day, someone would say, oh man, that was a wonderful moment of cultivating joy. I see that you did that. There's so many different ways that you can make these things come alive. I think, first of all, having really good ownership from people. So having people collaborate, having people feel, oh, I'm part of this. I was part of this. This
So,
does
Nicola,
reflect who
when you
I
say
am.
that,
Yeah,
does
yeah,
that
yeah.
mean that you got people in a room to come up with what is it that we believe in, that we want
I
a
mean,
kind of workplace? Like, what do you mean
our
collaborate?
So our last, I'm trying to look, see if I've got one on my shelf. I do, but it's a long way up and I'd have to disrupt our lovely flow. What we call it our 3-year play. It's actually 4 booklets. There's 4 booklets. So we've got one for Grey Street, which is a holding company. And then we've got a tax traders one, a taxi one, and then we have what we call our foundations. And that sets out our origin story, our DNA, what we believe about business, right? And what a good business looks like. And then it sets out our ways of working as well. So when I say people need to buy into those, we kind of, like you said, we didn't really get people in a room. We actually started with a Miro board that everyone could have a say over. We had like an hour of silence where every person was sitting, working at their Miro board in a way that worked for them. Like some people, if writing isn't a strength, they need to buddy with someone. But we had that hour and we started with things like, what's your dreams for yourself? Where do you want to be? Like, what do you see as the future for tax traders and taxi? What makes you come alive? Like all those kinds of questions. And so you've got like huge input. And then we did that with our kind of DNA as well. So every 3 years, we ask ourselves the question, do these 5 statements are they the best articulation of what we have in our hearts, right? The heart doesn't change, but sometimes the articulation does. And yeah, anyway, so we had actually had a really big discussion this year about whether innovate courageously was still right for us or whether we wanted to change it to work courageously. But it stayed at innovate courageously for a lot of reasons. But that's all to say we use different methods to ensure that people get to input. And
Amazing.
they do I feel like a good level of ownership over
Yeah.
that. So I guess that's saying, practically speaking, we are a strengths organization. Oh, sorry, you asked how it kind of comes alive. So first of all, having people collaborate. Secondly, it's
Can
part
I
of
just
an
stop there though? Because you say
yeah.
it like it's a small thing. Like for many organizations, they don't do a ground up process.
Oh,
Like
it has to
when I'm
be.
working with an organization to help humanize their workplace, it
Yes,
starts in exactly the same place that you're talking about,
yes.
which can be often for leaders in formal positions of authority really threatening. What do you mean everyone has a say here? No, no,
Yes,
no,
they
no.
should. Yeah, no, they
Right?
should.
So let's
And,
just go, wow, that's
and,
pretty
and
amazing.
and this can happen. Like we've got like 45 people on the team. This can happen. I've heard someone doing this yesterday. They had 400 people inputting into this, Or if you look at Patagonia with 2,500 employees, or Dentsu with 70,000 employees, they're still doing some really cool things. So we don't want to be limited by our size, too small, too big, over too many continents. Absolutely not. So And how it comes alive and how our DNA comes alive is like every all hands. So that's every, twice a week when we're, sorry, not twice a week, once every 2 weeks when we're all together, there'll always be a spotlight that on that. So what are you rewarding? What are you bringing attention to? What stories are you telling?
Amazing.
Are
So
they
you're saying you
stories?
bring the DNA into the conversation?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Every conversation, every showcase that a squad does at work, regardless of what it is, back, they will bring us back to our purpose and they will bring us back to our DNA. So it could be on, the change in the inventory. It could be on like a change in pricing. It could be on something really, really technical, but they'll say, hey, we are doing this because it links to our 3-year play, it links to our purpose, and these are the DNA components that are on display here when we are doing this thing. So there's lots of things like that. It's just part of our, I guess it's part of our vocabulary. And we have DNA awards, so where we really acknowledge someone who's done a wonderful job of innovating courageously or cultivating joy or whatever they've done. We do those. And then we also just have them in our systems. So when you give high fives via the program we use, you can tag something to it. So you can say, hey, high five. I loved how you knew the client that you were meeting with and you asked about these things and you bought them their favorite coffee and you just knew that, and you go hashtag see the person, right? So these things are just, they're really incorporated into so many different ways, but it definitely has to start
amazing.
with you. And then the really important thing here is they provide a platform on which any person at the organization can say, hey, we aren't living up to this. And that's what I think is the most important thing here. We aren't living up to this. And people have stood on those platforms. They've stood on like Show Integrity and said, hey, I think there's something a bit funny about how we are portraying, our pricing online. And that person was right. And man, it was a pain in the ass, but but they were right. And we hadn't thought about it like that, but that person was right. We changed it as a result. Or other people, and this feedback, by the way, comes to me about me,
Yeah.
and to Josh, my co-founder, and my husband, like, hey, I don't think you were practicing generosity there, and I don't
So,
actually,
so then,
so
Nicola,
that happens.
yeah.
Hmm.
And what I'm curious about is how you create the conditions for people for psychological safety to the degree that they can actually speak up in that space.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a really big question.
Mm.
But
Why don't
yeah,
we
we
decide to
could.
have another one of these conversations?
Okay, we should talk about it.
So
Yeah,
that we
yeah,
make these short, so people can kind of, okay, they've got a bit of a flavor, they've got some practical things. I just so
yeah,
love the way in which you've told the story about the integration of the DNA.
yeah,
If
yeah,
you out there happen to be watching this, Nicola and I are both speaking at an event on the 4th of November in Auckland, which is the Best Places to Work
yeah,
Masterclass.
yeah.
If you want to hear more, come along and hear us tell our stories there. Otherwise, Nicola, what do you reckon? Should we do another one of these?
We could do, but shall I give just a very quick practical tips because I don't want people to have nothing to go away with.
Beautiful.
So,
Do that.
so we have wellbeing month where we sprinkle wellbeing initiatives through the month, which just kind of gets people to focus there. That's like body, soul, mind, everything. We have really great approach to parents because to see parents well, you really need to see their families well. So we have nannies in the office. We have a holiday program that we run. It's a very small expense, but it makes a huge difference. We have unlimited kind of counseling and coaching. If I'm going to expect someone to begin to bring their whole self, sometimes they actually need to do a bit of healing and work that I'm not qualified to do with them at all. But that is a big part of what we do. We have like transparency, so our financial statements are available for anyone. We teach people how to read them so they actually know how the company's performing. Transparency of calendars, my calendars, everyone's calendars is open, so you can kind of see what everyone's doing and be reminded that these are these are humans here. We have really good leave policies. So there's lots of things that we do to constantly be setting the message. We care about you as a human. We want you to do the most outstanding work of your life.
Nicola, thank you so much for all you're doing to make workplaces more
Oh,
human.
thank you. Thank you. We could do a lot more on this, couldn't we?
We sure could. So let's
Yeah.
hang that out there as a carrot and
Yeah.
have another conversation.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
See you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Nicola.